and welcome to this week's episode of Experience Shakespeare. I'm Cassie Cash, that Shakespeare girl. This week I'm going to show you how to make Shrewsbury Cakes. Historians believe that the cakes and ale Sir Toby Belch is talking about when he declares cakes and ale in Twelfth Night is Shrewsbury Cakes. They were popular in Shrewsbury, England by 1596 when William Shakespeare was 32 years old, and I'm going to tell you more about them as well as how to make them in today's episode. Each week here on Experience Shakespeare, we take a tiny piece of Shakespeare's history and show you how you can do it at home. If you're new here, please hit like and subscribe and join us every Saturday for even more Shakespeare. This week we're going to dive into the history of Shrewsbury Cakes. Now sometimes they're called Shropshire Cakes. It's a type of cake that the best modern comparisons I could think of were gingerbread or shortbread cake. My uncle makes a really great tea cake, and the texture and round nature of these cookies, it's a lot like a tea cake that we have in the United States. I don't think it's the same tea cake as England, but it's basically just a sugar cookie. It's round, it's really simple to make, but for William Shakespeare, it was this delicacy. You would have them served at parties, or you would have them served for special occasions, and there's a whole lot of different varieties for how to make them. When I was looking into the right recipe to use, there's some debate about exactly what the earliest recipe for Shrewsbury cake is. It's associated with the town of Shrewsbury by 1596. The first verifiable printed recipe of it doesn't show up until 1621. Now there are recipes from 1617 for what's called a fine sugar cake by a man named John Murrell, and one of the bloggers that I found writing about these recipes tends to think that that's the same thing as a Shrewsbury cake. It includes, basically, you're gonna put flour, sugar, butter, and your spice of choice. You could use rosewater, was very popular in Elizabethan England, so that would probably be the most authentic. Today, we're going to use the juice of a lemon because I really like the flavor of lemon in a shortbread cookie. Lemon, rosemary, nutmeg, and cinnamon are in almost all of the recipes for Shrewsbury cake. But I couldn't find a consensus about, like, this is the recipe for Shrewsbury cake. It seems like it's a lot like any recipe you would have for sugar cookies. Everybody in the 16th and 17th century that made these kind of had their own way of doing it. So today we're going to use the one from the blog called revolutionarypie.com, and it starts with a cup of flour, a half a cup of sugar, a half a cup of oil, 1 egg, and 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg is what their recipe calls, and that's where mine's going to be a little bit different. So let's dive in. I will show you how to make Shrewsbury cakes, and then I will include links to all of the sources for the historical recipes as well as the references for how we developed the one we're going to use today, all in the show notes for today's episode. So let's get started. All right, we're going to start with a cup of flour. So could you please measure out a cup of flour, and we're going to put it right in here. The measuring cup that's already in that jar has a cup measure in it. So just get that cup measure out and put it in here. All right. The beeping reminds me that I have already preheated my oven to 350 degrees. In Elizabethan England, they didn't have preheated ovens, and actually one recipe that I found said, when you bake this, bake it in the open mouth of an oven till the breath of fire, and be aware not to burn it, I believe is the quote. So at least from that recipe, we know that when we get this to the oven, we have to monitor it, make sure it doesn't burn. It'll probably cook very fast. That's close, get a little bit more. You want it to be level all across the top to be a full cup, and let's see if we can shake it down. There you go, you can do it. Stick it in there. There you go. Now let me show you a little trick. What you can do is get a case knife, and you got the cup, don't let go. Okay, so hold it up like this, flat, and you just scrape it off the top, and now you have one level cup, and put that in there. So after our one level cup, we're gonna add a half a cup of sugar. Now, the actual recipe sometimes said just sugar, and sometimes it said caster sugar. I'm using organic raw sugar right now. Now you wanna mix that up?
Yep.
Almost all of the recipes that we saw called for butter. Now, my kids can't have dairy, so we are going to use oil as a substitute for butter so that they can enjoy this recipe with us. But you can use regular butter or margarine or just olive oil like we're gonna use today would substitute as well. Probably wanna use a little bit less oil than butter. So the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of oil. We're gonna use just a little bit less than 1/2 cup. Okay, that's good. Now add the oil. Well, actually, let's put all of our dry ingredients together and all of our wet ingredients together and then mix it. So get our lemon over there. We can't see it on camera, so bring that. Show them our lemon. Do you know how to grate a lemon?
I've grated an orange.
That's the same thing. For this recipe, I'm going to grate some lemon peel in here to give it a little bit of color. In Elizabethan England, they would have added what they had available to them, and usually that was things like nutmeg and cinnamon, rosewater, rosemary, thyme. There were lots of different spices in Elizabethan England, and whoever was making their Shrewsbury cake would have put in it what they wanted. Now, they were big into color in Elizabethan England, so I think as a nod to history and the Elizabethans, we're gonna grate some lemon peel into our Shrewsbury cakes to give it a little bit of a yellow color. So what you wanna do, so let's move our spoon there. Just grate this, you hold it with one hand, grate it with the other, and just put just a little bit, not the whole thing, just maybe once around the outside. We just want a little bit of flavor. Watch your fingers. There you go. Turn it so that it doesn't get down to the rind, because the rind is bitter. So when you're grating, you only want the outside. So you move the lemon around a lot. A little more. Good job. Now you want to tap this because it gets stuck on the bottom and you're all good. So now we want to cut the lemon in half because I'm gonna add a little bit of lemon juice to our liquid ingredients here. Now I'm using oil instead of butter, and that's kind of why I'm doing this way. If you were using butter, you would mix the butter in here first and then add your egg. But I'm going to get the seeds out of here. I'm gonna use 1/2 of the lemon. It's actually a little bit less than half. I cut it not even, so a little bit less than 1/2 of the lemon, and we're gonna add 1 egg. You wanna get the egg?
Yep.
And I'm doing the lemon just for the flavor. My boys like lemon, Elliot loves lemon, so we're adding lemon flavor because it's what we have. Rose water or any of those other spices would be good. And like I said, all of the historical recipes we looked up from one of them was from 1617, the other one was from 1640s, and there was one from the Maryland Historical Society from the 1800s where this recipe actually came over from England to the Americas with the Pilgrims or with the colonization of the Americas from England. I don't know that it was actually the Pilgrims, but when it came over, there's records of this recipe being made in the Americas after the founding of the United States of America, which probably came over from England. Okay, 1 egg. Now, secret about eggs.
That you can't break them squeezing it?
You don't know if it's bad until you've cracked it. So we don't want to crack it into what we're going to cook. We're going to crack it into that bowl and make sure it's a good egg, and then we'll pour it over here.
That good?
Yep. You want it, well, hit it harder. There you go. Now split it open. There you go. Now throw your shell away. We're going to get a fork. I'm going to beat it up just because I want it to stir well. Can you take our spatula and mix the grated lemon into our flour? Here, Ty wants to do it. Go get Ty a stool, and he can do this part. Okay? Elliot, can you pour the egg into here?
I got me a stool.
There you go. All right, climb up there and be careful.
What am I doing?
All right, you're gonna stir. There's little bits of lemon in here where we grated it. You see the yellow?
Yeah.
That's lemon rind, so just mix it in to the flour. Perfect. All right, now you stop and wait just a minute. Elliot's gonna pour the liquid ingredients in there, and then you can stir it up some more. But you gotta stir easy because the liquid will slosh. Ready?
Ready? I want to see it.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stir it up. Now you wanna mix this together. Most recipes say that you need to knead it So we're gonna mix this up first and see kind of what shape we get, and then we may have to knead it a little bit. All right, let Mama do. Good job, Tide. Look at that, it's turning into a cookie. It is looking a whole lot like a sugar cookie dough. This is what you would expect a sugar cookie dough to look like. Now we've got a parchment lined cookie sheet. And what we're gonna do is we're going to make little balls and put them out here, and we're gonna decorate them using a comb and a skewer, and I'll show you how that's done. We're gonna roll these and put them on the parchment paper and flatten them out.
Oh, I want to do one.
You can help me, okay?
Oh.
Okay. Once we've flattened it out, we're gonna take the comb to make a shape in the cookie.
Looks like a tic-tac-toe board.
Yes, it does. And then we just repeat this process with the rest of the dough. We'll make them, and then you bake them in the oven at 350 for 8 minutes. And like the man from 1617 told us, watch it to make sure it doesn't burn. So you take your comb and you just poke it straight in. Obviously you're gonna wanna use a clean comb, but you just go right to the edge, across one way, and then across the other way. And then if you wanna get real super fancy, you can take a poke and put little dots all in them. And this is one way that they would decorate these really rather simple recipe and just make it look really elegant. We put all of our well-decorated Shrewsbury cakes in the oven at 350 for somewhere between 8 and 10 minutes, but we're gonna watch them and make sure that they don't burn too fast. They should start to brown at the edges, and that's when you know that they're done. Now we're gonna get them out of the oven. Don't get burnt. Look at that, oh, they smell so good. Okay, bring them over here to the counter. Don't touch the pan, it's very hot.
All right.
We're going to take them off of here and put them on to our cooling rack. Oh, these smell so nice. And look, you can see the design came out on the final cookie. I can hear the coffee making. This is all together shaping up to be a very nice afternoon. While they cool, we're gonna put the rest of our cookies onto the cookie sheet. Don't touch the pan, very hot, very hot. They look good.
Yep.
Smell good. It's all very promising indeed. The recipe, most recipes that I read, and I read 5 to put today's Shrewsbury demonstration together, all the way from the 1500s through to the 1900s, as far as how to make Shrewsbury cakes. So, and I think 3 out of the 5 recommend letting them cool for 1 to 2 minutes before you eat them. So I'm letting that one cool while I put the second batch of cookies into the oven. And this is making exactly 6 more cookies. So this recipe makes exactly 1 dozen Shrewsbury cakes. Use our comb. I really like how making the diamond shapes with the comb turns out. So we're gonna do that again on these. And I'm gonna use the wider, thicker bristle end. Seems to make a more defined shape on the cookie, but it's just 3 across both ways. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you take this and you just poke a hole in the center of each diamond, and it makes a very elegant looking cookie, which of course all of this decoration is optional, but the Elizabethans were very big into food presentation. The recipes are not very complicated. They don't require a lot of exotic ingredients. I mean, rosewater seems exotic to me, but for the Elizabethans, they cook with it a lot. So this would have been a common way to flavor it, almost like having vanilla is for us today. The big thing for them was color and shape. So So now that we've done these, we'll stick these back in the oven to cook, and it'll be time to taste the cookies.
Wow.
And I'm gonna get some coffee, and then we'll try the cookies. It's time to eat the cookies. All right. Yeah. Try that one.
Okay.
Try that one. Wait, ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Wow.
That's good. Ah! And crumbly. Wow, I love the lemon.
Yeah, it really adds like a flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me a plate or a bowl?
Sure. I think we probably could have let them cool a little bit more to let them harden up so they wouldn't fall apart when you go to eat them. But all in all, it's just really good. I like Shrewsbury cake. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye. See you next week.
Is honey those ones?
Yes, honey, we can eat those ones.
Really good.
Thanks for watching this week. I am Cassie Cash, that's Shakespeare Girl. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. We're here every Saturday with even more Shakespeare. Big news, we now have an official Patreon page, and you can support the work we do here at That Shakespeare Girl, as well as the podcast, That Shakespeare Life, that goes out on Monday. We try to pair those up where you can learn from expert interviews on Mondays with the podcast, and you can learn how-to Shakespeare videos through these videos every Saturday. So if you'd like to support what we're doing, check out all the benefits of that over at patreon.com, and I'll see you next Saturday. Bye-bye.